Hey, everybody. We are live. Let me make sure we are also live in all the other places that we want to be live. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. All right, guys, here we are. And today we're talking auditions. So, first of all, celebrating all of you who came to our Pro Singer Career Accelerator workshop this past week and all the amazing commitment that you showed and all the wonderful breakthroughs that you had. I was just like over the moon at the amount of breakthroughs that you guys had. So many of you posted them in our Pro Singer Success Collective group. And one of the things that I noticed about in the chat and in the comments and in some of the other places where you guys were interacting with us is the amount of, shall we call it anxiety? Shall we call it lack of confidence? Shall we call it frustration around auditions? And so I want to come in here today and talk about auditions, talk about how to get better results from your auditions, because for many of you, the ability to be competitive and audition well and deliver in that pressure-filled competitive environment makes the difference between the opportunities you want and landing them and landing the career that you want and the income that you want and staying stuck at the level that you're at right now. And auditioning is its own skill. It's its own strategy. It's its own monster, if you will. And our ability to be competitive in auditions is often quite different from our ability to perform. Like, I know so many of you feel really good in performance and you feel like you're confident and you connect with the audience and you connect with yourself. But in an audition, it feels like a totally different animal. Like, you don't even recognize yourself. And the number one thing that blocks otherwise talented singers from standing out in auditions and winning auditions is that how do I want to put this? The number one thing is that you don't have a strategy for how to leverage your energy. So what do I mean by that? You don't have a strategy to leverage your energy in auditions. How many of you watching this, I see we've got some people watching live, feel like you have all these tools, you know that you can bring it, but in audition, you don't quite know how to tap into that in the same way as when you perform? Who feels like that? Tell me in the chat. Like, do you feel like your auditions never show up as powerfully as your performances? That you are able to tap a potential when you perform, but when you audition, it never feels as good or as powerful or as connected or as impactful? Tell me in the chat. This is the time to be like, okay, yep. Like, and there's no blame and shame in this, guys. Okay. The problem is that you don't know how to leverage your energy in auditions, and you do it when you perform, but something stops you from doing that in auditions. So that's what I want to talk about today, because we know, especially those of you who came to the workshop last week, especially those of you who have done our intensive training program, those of you who follow my content a lot, you understand that energy is the link between mind and body. And to be the most impactful singer, to be the kind of singer who really taps your potential and is able to make the kind of impact that wins gigs, that brings money, that brings acclaim, high-level opportunities, you need to be able to make the biggest impact on your audience. And you may know how to do that in performance, but that just may not be happening for you in auditions. And so when we talk about the energy game, leveraging your energy in auditions and understanding what are the things that tend to get in the way of you having that mind-body connection that otherwise shows up for you. And what are the limiting beliefs? What are the stories that you tell yourself? The perhaps old, even traumas of auditions past that have stayed with you all this time, auditions that did not go well, that block that energy from showing up for you in auditions that doesn't happen when you perform, because you have made auditions mean something different. You have limiting beliefs around auditions that don't show up when you perform, where you're in that place and you're like, why do I have to audition? Like, I wish they could just come see me perform. I wish they could just come see my show, because you understand that something shows up differently in performance than it does in an audition. So leveraging your energy and a strategy, because that's the thing you're missing. Many of you know how to leverage that energy in performance, but yet in auditions, it doesn't show up because you don't have a strategy for how to do that in auditions. So the first thing we want to look at is, what do I make auditions mean? I mean, that seems like a pretty innocent question. What do I make auditions mean? What's the story I tell myself about auditions? Am I telling myself the story of like, oh my gosh, they're sitting there and they're judging me. They're wondering what the heck I'm doing here. I don't belong here. Are you sitting there in the waiting room? You guys know this, especially those of you who do Broadway auditions, who do musical theater and opera auditions, where you're sitting in the waiting room and you can hear everybody in the room. You can hear them all doing their auditions, those who are going before you. And you're sitting there and you're like waiting for your turn and you're listening and you're like, oh my God, they're so good. And you start going down that, like, compare and despair spiral. And so you make auditions mean, in that case, that you're not good enough and you're sitting there right before you go on. That's what's the meaning that's going through your head. And so you don't know how to leverage that energy. In those moments, that energy is being taken down the what we call vortex of doom. And so a strategy to learn how to leverage your energy in auditions means examining your beliefs and choosing the ones that serve you, getting rid of the ones that don't, reframing your beliefs around auditions. It will shift your energy, because we know that energy responds to the thoughts and the feelings going on in the brain. A strategy that leverages your energy also creates a system of mental practice, not physical practice, mental practice, that conditions the circumstances in your mind for when you show up in those auditions. If you do not have a strategy and a system for mental practice for auditions, you are missing out on 20% of that potential that you otherwise would access. That last 20%, it's like what shows up 100% in performance, but only like 80% in auditions. But that's why you're not winning the auditions. The ones who are getting the part, the ones who are getting the gig, are the ones who are able to tap into that and show up 100%. Because at the level you guys want to play at, it's way too competitive. It's not enough to be able to tap into that 80% of that impact, right? So you don't have a strategy for mental practice that conditions your energy, that conditions your skill set. And yes, your skill set. Notice what I'm saying, mental practice for your technique, right? You've never been taught that. You don't have a strategy for that. And so you're missing out on being able to what that creates and tap into that last 20% of your potential, which is what will win the audition, what makes you much more competitive. So we're talking about, if you're just joining us, the things that allow us to leverage our energy so that we do stand out from the competition in these auditions. Another one is being able to understand that they are on your side, meaning the auditioners, the people who are sitting behind the table taking notes on you. You know what I mean? Like, we all think that they like are rooting for us to fail, that they're just waiting for us to F up, that they just want to like cross us off. No, you guys, like, if you show up to the 100% of your potential and you do an incredible job, you make their job way easier, because then they're like, yes, we can cast this person. They're rooting for you, but most of us don't see it that way. They want you to do well, because then they get to cast you and they don't have to keep searching. If it's a band, if you have a band and you're doing like showcases, or you're putting out for gigs, you're doing, a lot of the band kind of showcases that happen, and it's competitions and things like that. Like, the people judging, they're rooting for you, because if you do well, you make their job easier. Okay? It's very obvious who they want to give the slot to if you're a band. It's very obvious who they want to cast in the role if you're opera singer or Broadway singer. So that's another thing you can leverage your energy around, which is they're rooting for me. They want me to succeed. They want to cast me. And another way, another frame that we put around this that like I learned a long time ago is I'm the only one who can bring me. There's only one me. Right? Everybody else who's auditioning for that, they don't have what I have. Why? Because they're not me. I'm the only me. So when I put that frame around it, my energy shifts because I'm no longer trying to prove something. I'm no longer competing for something that I feel like I don't stack up to. Okay. So these are all tactics and ways to be able to learn how to leverage the energy that's already within you so that your technique, so that your mindset, so that your artistry shows up in auditions in a much more powerful way. But you guys, it is a strategy. And I'm giving you a little bit of it now, but it's a much deeper strategy. It's something that I learned a long time ago, which allows me to show up when I audition in a way that is much more successful. And many of you know I don't go on a ton of auditions anymore because I know how to land them. So I only go out for the auditions that I want because I don't have to do a bajillion of them because it's not like a crapshoot anymore. Like some of you may know, a couple of years ago it was last summer. I went out, I hadn't auditioned in like 3 years because of COVID. And I knew there was this thing that I wanted to do. We were performing works by a composer who does all kinds of beautiful work around stories around the West. He wrote an opera around Sacagawea and the Lewis and Clark story. Like he's done incredible work. And I wanted to audition for this. It was a concert of his work with orchestra. And I didn't have to travel for it. It was here at the Aspen Music Festival when I was here in the summer. I have a daughter. Like I don't want to be traveling all around the world. So I'm very like pointed about the opportunities that I want. But I don't have to go on a million auditions because I know how to land what I want. And I hadn't been in an audition since before COVID, since like 2019. And this was last summer, 2023. So almost 4 years I hadn't been in an audition. And this was the first audition that I had been on in 4 years. And I landed it. And I got to sing his beautiful work with orchestra at the music festival last summer because I know how to leverage my energy in auditions so that I show up to the potential that I know is in there and I'm not being sabotaged in any other way. Okay. So the reason that we're talking about this is because this is audition season, guys. Like, especially those of you who are opera singers and recording artists. Opera singers and Broadway singers. If you're recording artists, your opportunities to showcase and audition are happening all year round. But primarily for Broadway singers and opera singers, the fall is where the most volume of auditionings is happening. And we're about to go into that, guys. September is like 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away. Okay. And September, October, November, like that is audition season. And it is here, guys. And I want you guys to be able to show up to audition season like the most powerfully, the most competitive, and the most ready so that you can go out there and nail these auditions and get way better results than you have done before. So we're going to be spending a lot of time over the next couple weeks talking about audition strategy. Today we're talking about the strategy to leverage your energy. And I was talking about mental practice. I was talking about other things. And these are techniques that, obviously take more than 15 minutes on a live to deep dive into. So we're going to be over the next couple weeks talking a lot more about auditions. And it's going to culminate on September 14th and 15th in an audition mastery bootcamp. So I'm hosting an online bootcamp Saturday and Sunday, September 14th and 15th, for those of you who really want to dial in those auditions to get different results and better results this audition season. So I'm going to put the link to register into the chat for you guys, and not the chat. What are we calling it? Into the comments. We'll say the comments here. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, the link will be in the post copy or the video description on YouTube and also in the end card on YouTube. But here it is for those of you who are on Facebook. Okay. Sorry, guys. I want to make sure I'm putting this in the right place. I'm not always the most technically savvy. Okay, here it is. So this is the information. If you want to grab your spot, we have an early bird discount for those of you who are interested in wanting to join us for the Audition Mastery Bootcamp. And it's only, you guys, it's an absurdly low rate. It's $150 for the early bird pricing that ends on September 1st. You can still join us after that. It'll be $250 after that. But you guys, it's $150 for 12 hours of bootcamp coaching. So we're going to do a morning session and an afternoon session each day on Saturday the 14th and Sunday the 15th. Again, it's online. And this is going to be different than audition master classes that you've probably had before. Most audition workshops tell you like what not to do, right? So like, don't sing from the musical, only sing from the musical. Don't do anything other than XYZ in your 16 bars. Don't do this, like show up to the casting wearing that. Don't wear this. Like, this is not what this is, guys. Like, this is, you know me, like this is like the deeper work that really shifts your energy, your technique, your skill set, so that when you show up, you're showing up with a completely different level of results that you know you can get. So we're going to be doing belief work. We're going to be doing technique work to understand what happens when you go into auditions that maybe doesn't happen in your technique when you perform. We're going to be doing mindset work. We're going to be doing artistry work. We're going to be looking at the strategy of all of the ways that you have traditionally shown up to auditions and how we shift that to give you the best strategy that you can use from now on forward to get different results from your auditions. We're going to talk about nerves. I mean, how many of you nerves in auditions, right? Like you perform and maybe you get a little nervous, but auditions just like massively chip you out, right? We're going to be talking about how to annihilate nerves. We're going to be talking about how to show up and what to do to prepare week before, day before, hour before, so that you get better results and you understand what your challenges and your habits have been in the past that have kind of gotten you the lackluster results out of auditions that you've been experiencing and what we need to do to shift them. So I put the link in the chat or in the comments for you guys. If you're watching on YouTube, it's in the video description. We're going to be doing a lot more content, like I said, over the next couple of weeks talking about auditions. And if you want my eyes and ears, and if you want to participate in this very hands-on experience so that I'm taking you through the strategy of how to shift your auditions, then you definitely want to come to the boot camp on the 14th and 15th. So that's my jam for today. I'm looking to see if you guys have questions about stuff. You can always put it in the chat. About what we've been talking about specifically with regards to auditions. Hi, Michael, I see your question. And thank you for the compliment that you enjoy the way I teach. So unfortunately, I can't receive submissions to give comments on, because if I did, I would be bombarded by so many of you who would want critique and who would want suggestions around your voice and your recording. So unfortunately, I can't do that. However, we do have training programs for singers. We have our intensive training program, and then we have smaller events like this Audition Mastery Bootcamp that we're doing. We also do free training events from time to time throughout the year. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in training with me, to reach out to me, either DM me here on Facebook, or you can reach out to me through my website. And we can talk about what might be a fit for you, depending on what your goals are and what's going on with your singing. Good question. Glad you asked. All right, guys. So start to think about your auditions. Start to think about what kind of results you want to create. Follow the content that I'm going to be giving you over the next, 2-3 weeks. And if you want to participate and really have a bootcamp-like intensive experience where you learn and you have actionable things that you're going to be doing that will shift how you show up to the next auditions that you do, then you definitely want to register and participate in the bootcamp, in the Audition Mastery Bootcamp. Okay, guys, sending love to you all. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.